Hi, I'm Cindy Winget, the author of some Gothic horror mashups, and welcome to my channel. So today we're going to be doing my May wrap-up video. I read 6 books this month and then have 2 DNFs. So I'm going to first talk about a couple of NetGalley arcs that I have because I don't have the physical copies and I'm afraid I'll forget to mention them if I don't do it right at the beginning. So these are both YA novels, and the first one is We Won't All Survive by Kate Alice Marshall. And this is about a group of kids who go onto this reality TV show that's all about survival. And so they're supposed to go to this ghost town, and then they're supposed to do like different challenges to get their water or to get their food or to get their first aid kits and different things like that. But when they get there, there's nobody else around. There's no adults in sight. And the gate locks behind them and they get locked in this ghost town out in the middle of the desert, and seemingly nobody knows that they're there. But they do have a video that comes on and it shows the man that started this whole reality TV show production, and so he tells them how to do their first challenge, and so they do the first challenge. But then when it's over, they're like, where is everybody? Why is nobody like coming out after the first challenge? Like you would expect to see somebody at some point, but they soon realize that nobody's coming. This is probably pre-recorded messages and they are actually on their own and having to survive. And then one of the members of the group ends up murdered. And so now they're locked inside with the killer. So this book started out really strong for me. I really enjoyed the main character. I really enjoyed the setup. I liked the reality TV aspect. But about halfway, my interest started to wane a little bit. It was pretty predictable in my opinion, but I mean, it's YA and a lot of YA books do tend to be more predictable. But I don't know, it just didn't have that same feeling that it had at the beginning. You know, I didn't feel as invested, and to be honest, only some of the characters I even like knew anything about. Most of them, it was just a name, and I'm like, I don't know who this person is. I don't know anything about them. Like, okay, that's so and so, but whatever, you know. And so I didn't DNF it, but by the end, I realized I couldn't give this book above a 3-star because I don't know. The second half didn't capture my attention the same way as the beginning did. So it wasn't terrible, but not a new favorite by any means either. And then the next book I read was Very Dangerous Things. And this is about a group of kids who all go to school together, and as part of their program that they're in, they have to partake in a murder mystery game at their school. And so they set up a murder, and one of the students gets murdered, and then everybody else has to figure out the clues and figure out the mystery behind how this person died. But as you can probably already predict, the student that was supposed to pretend to be dead actually ends up really murdered, and in the same manner as the game. And so now it turns into a real life investigation. So if you are somebody that really enjoyed A Good Girl's Guide to Murder, then I think you would really enjoy this one. That was just an okay read for me, and I kind of felt similarly about this one. So kind of the same as the other arc that I read. I didn't hate it, didn't love it, but I did think this one was a little bit stronger than the Kate Alice Marshall one. But, and I never really felt like I wanted to DNF it, which is a good thing. But I'd maybe give this a 3.5 stars because it was a little bit predictable, but not completely, which was good. And the manner of killing was a little bit different than you originally think, and I thought that was pretty interesting. And I did like the characters a lot, and so yeah, some aspects were predictable and stuff, but for the most part I really did enjoy my time with it. It just wasn't enough to give it a 4-star rating, but I did enjoy it for the most part. I think both of these books come out July 29th. I should have looked that up before recording this video. I meant to and I forgot, but I believe they're coming out July 29th. So because of Mother's Day, I knew I wanted to read at least one book that had to do with motherhood and being a mother or being pregnant or something to that effect. So I read Delicate Condition by Daniel Valentine. And this is a modern retelling of Rosemary's Baby. So we have this woman who is wanting to be pregnant. It's all she thinks about. She's stressed about it. And so her and her husband are doing IVF, and they've been trying for a while. And she finally gets pregnant, and she's so excited. but then she ends up miscarrying and she's obviously devastated. But then like a week goes by and she starts to feel movement in her stomach and she's like, wait a minute, I thought I miscarried, but that feels like a baby kicking, and so she goes back to the hospital and they're like, oh no, you didn't, it's alive. And so she's like, oh great, and she's so excited that her baby is not actually dead. But as more and more time goes on, she starts to realize that maybe not everything is what it seems with this baby, that maybe something else is going on. And, she's never been pregnant before. And so she's like, well, I've heard of cravings before, obviously, but she's craving roadkill and eating dead critters that she finds in the woods. Or, she's like, I know people say that you have pain associated with pregnancy. She's like, but do you really have this much pain? And so she's having these symptoms that are leading her to believe that maybe this pregnancy isn't as natural and normal as she suspected. So I really enjoyed this one. I thought it was a good, fun time, and I would give this 4 stars. I've really enjoyed most books that I've read from this author, and so I'm very pleased to have also liked this one, and I will definitely continue to read more from her. I did think it had all the Rosemary Baby type vibes. And it also reminded me of Grady Hendrix's new book, Witchcraft for Wayward Girls. So if you like that book, then I think you would really like this book. And then vice versa, if you really like this book, then you would like that one. So I will say one thing about this book is I did find a lot of typos, and I mean a lot of typos. And typos are common. Usually every book I read, I find at least 2. But this was enough that I was like, wow, there's a lot of typos. And so I feel like this book could have been edited better. But outside of that, I really enjoyed this one. Okay, and then I finally read The Quiet Tenant. This was like all the rage a year or 2 ago, and I missed it. I didn't get to it. So I'm very late to the party, but I'm finally glad to have finally read this book. So for those that may not know, this is about a woman who has been kidnapped, and for 5 years, she's been trapped in this man's shed. He has a wife and kid and is living his normal life. But then his wife passes away from cancer. And so he's kicked out of his home because it was his in-laws' house. And because their daughter is gone and they never really liked him, they're like, get out type thing. And so now he's like, well, crap, what do I do? Because I have this woman in my shed. Like, do I kill her? Do I take her with me? Like, what do I do? And so he decides that he is going to take her with him to the new house, but he has a teenage daughter. And so he has to try and conceal her presence, And so she convinces him that she can live in this house with them. And, she would just pretend to be a tenant living in his house. And he's renting a room to her, basically, because she's down on her luck. And so that's the story they come up with for the teenage daughter. But really, she's, this kidnapped victim. So unfortunately, I don't think I love this book as much as everybody else did. Everybody was raving about this book and giving it 5 stars. And while I did enjoy this book, I really thought it was a good time. It was also a very frustrating read because there's so many times when she could have escaped and doesn't. And yeah, I understand, mentally you've been trapped for so long and you're so mentally not the same as what you were, but it doesn't even explain it in that way. It says other reasons why she doesn't escape, and those reasons just don't make any sense, or no reason is really given. She's just like, oh, I could escape, but I won't. I don't know, and it was so frustrating. Those parts just really annoyed me. And then it's very, very repetitive, and that didn't necessarily bother me too much, but it does eventually start to just be very repetitive and very the same. And then there's a perspective from a woman who is kind of obsessed with our serial killers. She works at a bar and he goes to this bar frequently and she kind of has a crush on him. And I understand that it's one more person that he has to conceal his bad deeds against, but at the same time, I didn't understand having a POV from her point of view because it really didn't add that much to the story. And I just wasn't necessary to be there. And her character was also highly annoying because, I don't know, I feel like this book was supposed to be saying something, but this perspective kind of canceled it out because she's kind of crazy, to be honest. And so, I don't know, I just didn't love her perspective. I think her name's Emily. Let me see. Yeah, Emily. And I didn't love that perspective. I didn't feel the need for that perspective. And I kind of wish it wasn't even included in the book, if I'm being honest, but it was. They also had perspectives from all of the other victims that he had killed in the past, but they only get like a few paragraphs, and it was hard. I don't know, the way it was written, it was hard to really get a grasp of what actually happened to these victims because it was just so vague. And so, again, I'm not sure we really needed those perspectives because it was just like thrown in there, like, oh, and he killed this person, and then we're going on. And he killed this person, but I don't know who this person is. I don't know really how they died. I don't know why it's included. Like, I don't know, it didn't add anything to the story, and so I kind of questioned why it was there. And I thought it was weird because our main character, her perspectives are all in second person, but then you have these other victims and they're all in first person. And I kind of feel like that was a weird choice. I feel like they should have been swapped. But that's just an opinion thing. Like, that's not anything that's wrong with the book. That's just a personal preference. You know, I don't love second person narratives, and I feel like if you're going to do that, then like the other victims would have made more sense to be written that way rather than our main character. But again, that's just a personal preference of mine. But not only that, but all of the characters in here were pretty one-dimensional and flat. And I wanted more menace from our serial killer. I just didn't find him very scary. It was hard to feel that fear and that, you know, oh no, what if she gets caught? Because I kind of felt like, I don't know, she could take him. Like, he was kind of a wuss anyways. Like, I don't know. Like, I just didn't feel the menace. I didn't feel the creepiness. I didn't feel the threat. You know, he just felt like a very average guy, which I know is, you know, scary in and of itself to think that your suburban neighbor could be a serial killer, you know, when he just seems like this upstanding, normal guy. Like, I get that. Portrayed out in the world, yeah, that's a great commentary. But when he's just one-on-one with his victim, I want to feel the fear. I want to feel the menace. I want to be afraid for her life. I want to be afraid of this man, and I just wasn't. So this is just kind of a side note, but this is actually written by a woman. I thought this was written by a man. I don't speak French, so I didn't realize that it was a girl's name until I looked at the author and was like, oh, it's a woman. So anyway, it's nothing to do with the book, but I just thought that was kind of funny. So yeah, I really enjoyed this one. I thought it was entertaining, but it's not something I'm going to revisit. It's not something that I'm going to gush about. So probably about 3.5 stars for this one. And then I read It Will Only Hurt for a Moment by Delilah S. Dawson. This is my first book from this author, and it will not be my last because I found a book that I will gush about. So this wasn't quite a 5-star read for me. I'd give it 4.5. It almost stuck the landing, just not quite. But I loved this book. I thought it was really, really good. It's definitely a slow burn. It's more of like a mystery. So if that's your vibe, then I would highly recommend this one. But it's not going to be a high action thriller, you know. It's not going to keep you on your toes. But if you like mysteries, if you like atmospheric books, if you like isolated settings, then I think you would really enjoy this one, because this is about a woman who goes to an artist's retreat, and she's just got out of an abusive relationship, and she's trying to get back into pottery, which is something that she really enjoyed doing. But as in most abusive relationships, that was taken away from her, and she didn't feel like she could pursue that. And so now she's trying to get back to it. But she's trying to dig a hole to make an underground kiln for her pottery, and she discovers a body. And this body's over 150 years old. So, you know, it's not a recent murder or anything. But after she discovers this corpse, crazy things start happening, and people start acting really weird, like the other people that are there with her. But yeah, I loved this. I thought this was so well written, so well done, and I really, really loved it. But I can't give it the 5 stars because I didn't overly love the ending. It didn't quite stick the landing for me. There's an event that takes place at the end that I found highly unbelievable and pretty contrived, and so I was like, Like, I understand why it was included in the book, but I felt like it could have been done differently. And then her friend, who only hears what's happening, she doesn't actually see anything, but yet she knows like exactly what happened. And I thought that was pretty unbelievable. If you've read the book, you know what I'm talking about. So yeah, I didn't love the ending. I thought the ending could have been done a little bit better, but for the most part, I really enjoyed this book and I really loved it and I would recommend it. So the last book that I read was Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry, but I'm not going to tell you anything about this book because I'm actually reading it for a reading vlog that's going to be coming out next month. So stay tuned for that. If that sounds interesting to you, I'm going to be reading this book for you guys and then tier ranking all of her books so far and letting you know where this falls in my ranking. So if that sounds interesting, go ahead and stay tuned for that video. But I did read this month, but I'm not going to tell you anything about it. Sorry. Okay, so for my 2 DNFs of the month, we have A Haunting in Room 904. And I was super, super, super excited. This is probably the one I was most excited to read this month. And so I'm very bummed that I didn't end up loving this. My biggest complaint with this book is the writing. I thought the writing was pretty weak. I thought it was pretty juvenile. And the dialogue was very, very juvenile to the point where this really does read like a YA, but like on the younger side of YA. And every single one of the characters says like a lot. And like we did this, and then like totally did like this, And I'm thinking, these aren't teenagers, so why are they talking like teenagers? And I could see like one character talking like that, and it's kind of like a quirk of their personality. But when every single character talks like that, it's very unbelievable and very bizarre that it would be written like that. And every one of our main characters' friends were very annoying. And I did not relate to any of them. And like I said, they just read very young, like they're 13 years old, but supposedly they're like 35. So I just did not get on with the writing. I couldn't do it. I really liked the premise because this is, a haunting book, which I really like. And this has Native American representation, which I really enjoy. And I really loved the premise because you have this hotel room where a woman every like 12 years or something passes away in this room. And it doesn't matter if they're checked into that room or not, but they end up dead in that room. And our main character is a paranormal investigator, which, I love that. I love that she's a paranormal investigator. I think that's so interesting. And the first couple of chapters that I read, it's one of those times where the idea, you could tell, is a good idea and it's very exciting, but the execution just didn't do it for me. The execution did not live up to the premise, did not live up to the idea. So I couldn't get past it. There's no way I could read a whole entire book with that. It was fast and it was an easy read, so, but that's about the only thing it had going for it. The writing was just not for me. And she also put question marks at the end of a lot of sentences that weren't actually questions. I don't know why she did that, but it was very, again, bizarre and weird. I mean, I guess that's a choice, but I just don't know why she was making sentences questions that weren't actually questions. And then she would make up words. Like instead of saying she committed suicide, she'd say they suicided, which I don't know. I don't love that. So I don't know. This just really was not for me. And it makes me sad because I have White Horse written by the same author sitting on my shelves. And now I kind of don't want to read it. I have read some reviews that say that White Horse is better than this one, so maybe there's some hope, but it definitely went way down on my TBR list. So my next DNF was This Cursed House, and this is probably the second book I was most excited to read this month. So I hate that the 2 books I was the most excited to read this month ended up being DNFs. That makes me so, so sad. But, it is what it is. It happens, but this is a Southern Gothic novel about this woman who gets hired to go work for this rich family, and they are white passing, so they are black, but they can pass for white. But because she looks black, they kind of are snooty with her and look down on her and different things. But she goes to work for them thinking that she's going to be a nanny, but then when she shows up, there's no kid. She's like, where's the kid? So she was led there under false pretenses, and now for various reasons she can't leave. So I love that premise. I was very excited. I love Gothic stories, and the fact that this is Southern Gothic and also historical was very exciting because this takes place in the 60s. So I was very excited. The first few chapters were great. I loved the history, I loved the setting, I loved the atmosphere. It was everything I wanted it to be, and I was super excited to read it. But as time went on, my enjoyment lessened. So the atmosphere kind of got sucked away. Like I no longer felt that atmosphere. And our main character can see ghosts, but it wasn't creepy in the slightest. It wasn't mysterious. It wasn't atmospheric. It was just like she would see a ghost and then run away. Ah, a ghost. Like, I don't know. It didn't have any of those vibes that I was seeking from this book. This is kind of stupid because I say the reveal, but it's not really a reveal because it's in the synopsis. So if you read what this book is about, you'll already know why she's at the house. But I feel like that was revealed to our main character too early. And so, the mystery was taken away, even though it wasn't a mystery to us, it was still a mystery to our main character. And I was expecting her to do more exploring and hunting this mystery out. But it's like she gets there and then they tell her why she's here and right away. And it just took away all of the mystery, took away all of that tension. And then after that, it just dissolves more into like a family drama. And I don't know, I didn't like it. I just found myself not really caring about any of these people. Even the main character was kind of annoying, and I just didn't care. And I didn't get any of the vibes or the atmosphere or the creepy mysteries that I wanted. So I was like, you know what? After I think I got to page 125, and I was like, I just don't think that this is going to be above a 3-star at this point. So why am I even finishing it, basically? Because it might even be like a 2.5. So I'm just like, I'm not really enjoying it. So why bother reading the rest of it? So I was really, really sad. I was really, really looking forward to this one. I really thought this was going to be a new favorite, but it just didn't quite do it for me. So there you have it. Those are all the books I read or didn't read in the book of May. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up to let me know. Please subscribe to my channel if you feel so inclined. And I post every Friday, and I hope to see you in the next one. See ya.